Bayside planning panel's charged with a considerable responsibility of dealing with planning proposals and determining development applications, which are generally worth less than $30 million. We deal primarily with those where there's potential conflicts of interest, where they're contentious in nature, where there's a substantial departure from the development standard, or where they're otherwise considered to be a sensitive development. We also deal with matters that have attracted more than 10 objections, and they become then part of this public meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask for your cooperation in the meeting. I'd ask you to generally be on mute, if you'd be so kind. Would you please, when you speak, be as brief as possible? Would you also please respect anyone else that might be speaking and give them the same sort of courtesy that you would expect them to give you? I'm going to introduce the panel to you. Perhaps myself as chairman. My name's Gary Shields. I'm a planner, urban designer and traffic engineer. I have experience as a consultant for some 30 odd years. I've worked in local councils. I've been an acting commissioner in the court, and I'm currently chairing or alternately chairing a number of local planning panels. Can I ask Robert Montgomery to introduce himself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Robert Montgomery. I'm a town planner by background. I have spent the last 15 years working in my own private consultancy. Prior to that, I spent a lot of years working in local government in various planning and executive positions. I've also worked in state government in the planning department, and I provide planning advice to a number of councils and private clients. And I also chair another one of these panels and sit on a total of four panels as an expert. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Larissa, please.
Good evening. My name's Larissa Ozog. I'm a town planner project manager with about 25 years of experience, predominantly in local government, some state government experience and private practice, and I sit on a couple of panels and at the moment consulting for health infrastructure, so I do some state government work. Thanks.
Thank you. And Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening to everyone. My name is Anna Corpus. I'm a Bexley resident for 14 years. I have over 25 years of experience with state government in strategic planning and policy. I have worked with the Department of Planning and Environment for over 20 years in areas of sustainability, natural resources, climate change, water infrastructure at the moment. I have a postgrad in policy and also a postgrad in water management. I am a judge for Keep Australia Beautiful for the last 15 years, and also a judge for the International Association for Public Participation for the last 2 years. And I'm proud to be a member of the planning panel. Hopefully I can contribute substantively to this work.
Thank you, Anna. Can I say, and we will all say sequentially, I have no known conflict of interest in the matters being dealt with tonight. Robert?
No, I don't have any conflict of interest tonight.
Larissa?
Likewise, no conflict.
And Anna?
No conflict of interest for tonight's discussions.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Bayside Council respects our traditional custodians of the land, elders past and present, on which we're meeting is taking place this evening. We acknowledge both the Gadigal and the Binjagal clans of the Sydney Basin and afford them the appropriate respect. Do I have any apologies this evening from anyone? No.
There are no apologies.
Thank you. And we have some minutes of the previous meeting, which have been subsequently adopted by the chairman of that meeting. And I just simply need to note that for the purpose of tonight's minutes. Can I say that all of the panel, because of COVID, we don't carry out site inspections conjointly, but we do carry out our inspections separately, and we have all been to the site. We've read the council officers' reports, and we've considered the submissions by objectors and people supporting the application, and indeed all of the documentation presented to council. So thank you for that. In particular, the council officers, thank you for those very considered assessments and reports. I'm moving to, if I may, item 1, which is referred to in the agenda as item 6.1, being DA 2021/147, 13 Bay Street, Rockdale, and it's a development application for a boarding house, or more appropriately, a mixed use with a shop on the ground floor and boarding house accommodation above. And the panel has had a briefing on this matter from the council officers prior to this public meeting. And we have 2 speakers that are presenting to the panel this evening. And we have 2 submissions which the panel has considered also. The first speaker I have listed is Mr. Andrew Bauer. Mr. Bauer, are you with us?
Thanks, Gary. I am. Can you hear me?
I can indeed, loud and clear. Thank you, sir. Can you present your case to the panel? Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary, and good evening, everyone. I'll keep this very short and informal, really. My segment here is more so a question to the panel, probably is the way it's going to come across. Look, so I'm an owner-occupier in Chapel Street, Rockdale. It's my primary residence, and as noted, I have some minor concerns with the proposed development at 13 Bay Street, and it's not specifically in terms of the actual development itself, the actual building, the shape of the building, the height or anything like that. It's more so the use of the building being a boarding house. And again, my segment here could be more of a question rather than, I might need some justification from the panel on if it is a valid concern or not. Obviously, the developments at 1 Chapel Street, 1 Chapel Lane or thereabouts have been very exciting to see. That is the Alphan and Banks precinct. It's coming to life, and I think it's being very well received by the residents of Chapel Street. There's been some great things happen. I think it was a masterstroke by council to think about the public domain there. It's just as much of a placemaking development as it is an apartment development. It's going to revitalise that area, and I just think it's fantastic. Public seating outdoors, and it's going to make the area and the street more inviting for families, in my opinion. And young professionals, is going to attract a different demographic to that block and that area of Rockdale. What my concern is with boarding houses, and from my knowledge, is the type of resident that a boarding house attracts. I've got no issues at all with short-term accommodation or short-term leasing, etc. But I'm just concerned that the boarding house may attract people perhaps who are integrating back into society from the correction system, or perhaps participating in drug rehabilitation programs. And I'm just wondering what sort of impact, if that's going to have And I'm absolutely not discriminating against anyone from those backgrounds, but it will have an effect, I believe, perhaps on the area and that new public domain space. Perhaps you'll have certain characters hanging around out in that space of a night time or, during the day. And it might be off-putting to families and people who are new to the area and wanting to use that space as well. And then, of course, perhaps impacting negatively on the desirability of the area. And I feel if that is the type of clientele that this boarding house is going to service, I feel that it is contradictory to that placemaking strategy for Chapel Street and that Chapel Square area. I think I'll probably leave it there. I hope that sort of makes sense, but sort of short and sweet. And that's my primary concern.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Mr. Bauer, have you had the opportunity to read the conditions of proposed for development consent in the council officer's report?
I haven't, Gary. I've only sort of read like I can't remember. It was quite a while ago now that I looked at that at the application, but I didn't see anything in there in terms of who it would service. Perhaps I did speak to some other people who are a little bit more educated on the matter, and they said that although even if the developer says that it's going to, say, for example, service people from the hospital, nurses and people who are travelling and need short-term accommodation, the reality of once it's constructed and what the property owner is then essentially free to sort of invite whatever sort of clientele they want, of course, and that would be, regardless of what that sort of brief might say, that would still be a bit of a concern for me.
Mr. Bauer, it's not so much, is it, the person who might occupy it, it's how they might behave. Isn't your real underlying concern?
Yeah, absolutely, and not in a discriminatory way, but this is a free country, but that's my concern. Yes. Yeah, in a respectful way, and it's just certain people, like people moving into those new buildings, and that might be intimidated to sit on and to use the public space if you have those people sort of hanging around outside, certain characters and things around the place, and it would just be a shame to see that be the result.
Well, the applicant, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The applicant is presenting to us, so we may well put some of your concerns to him for a response. Does any members of the panel have a question they'd like to ask Mr. Bauer?
No question.
If not, Mr. Bauer, you might like to wait on. Sorry, did I cut anyone off then? If not, you might like to wait on and hear the responses from the applicant shortly.
Thank you.
And indeed, if you can, you probably won't have, well, you could get access to the council's agenda and indeed the conditions, which might be of interest to you. In particular, one condition requiring a plan of management, which there'll be some discussion about tonight. Thank you, Mr. Bauer, for your submission. Can I ask if Mr. Peter Dodds is with us? Mr. Dodds?
I certainly am, sir.
Mr. Dodds, how are you this evening?
I'm not too bad, thank you.
Excellent. I'm wondering if you'd like to briefly address us and tell us the matters you'd like us to consider.
Look, most certainly. I've got sort of 4 points. I'm in the building next door to this site, so this is very much something that I have been aware of. The things I wish to cover is I'm concerned that there's cooking facilities in the room. Now, the documents that we've got are contradictory. One point it says this is what's in the room, and another point it contradicts itself. So my concern is if there's one error in these documents, how many other errors are there? Because I can tell you now for cooking, it says on page 44, C.6, cooking facilities including hot plates, ovens, etc., are not permitted in the boarding rooms themselves. But on page 109 in their plan, it says that the kitchen's going to have sink, microwave, cupboards, fridge with freezer, cooktop, kettle, toaster, kitchen crockery, cooking tools and utensils. So what this says to me, and I deal in business, if there's one error in a document, how do I know there's not two? How do I know there's not 10? So to me, this casts aspersions upon the document itself, which I think has been a rushed submission. To move on to one of my other main points is the parking issue. I, over the past few nights, have been going down into the public car park in my building here, and I've walked around a couple of the streets, and while I haven't been collecting number plates, I have taken a note of the vehicles parked there, and we already have a problem in this building on levels B1 and B2 with the parking, with people from other buildings parking here overnight. If I'm a tradesman and a truck full of tools, I can lock it in the car park. It's opened up in the morning. So they've got far more secure parking than what they probably have available in their own buildings or on the street. We've got no way at the moment of enforcing any of the actions around here. Last night, there were 4 people parked in no parking zones here. So there's a parking problem in this area already. And we're adding to it with this building with what I believe to be inadequate parking that certainly doesn't meet the needs of this area, and it's just going to make a problem worse. And if we can't enforce the current parking restrictions, how are we going to enforce them in the future once this building is built? Now, and I understand all the offset they get with 50% of car parking space, and that does not change the problem of there's inadequate parking here now, and this is before the 2 buildings behind are finished, albeit they have parking in it, but there's going to be significantly more visitors and people here, plus this building next door, which doesn't have sufficient parking for the people that will be residing there. So I think that's a significant issue. I think I don't have much faith in the figures that are within this document for much the same sort of reason that of the cooking things. I just think things quite possibly could be made up to make it look favourable. My other concern is smoking. Now, I understand the building is a non-smoking building. Given that these people are most likely to be in the first quintile within our society, which means they've got a higher proportion of people that are smoking or vaping, these people are going to be forced into the street. Now, I've been watching these people today laying all this new paving in Chapel Street behind us here, but if these people can't smoke in their rooms, they're going to come down into the street. So what we're doing is that a problem for us is that we're going to have to deal with, all the issues of smoking. And I'm a reform smoker, so please, I'm not being hypocritical. I'm just being very much aware of the fact that we're going to have to deal with cigarette butts. We're going to have to deal with people sitting there smoking in an area that is going to deny other people pleasure and enjoyment and the amenity of that area. And I think that is in itself a very, very big issue. And I also note about whether this building as a boarding house is needed in the area, given that there's a 48-room boarding house being built just beside the railway station at the moment, Jenham, I think it is called, which is obviously going to cater to a need. And, to be honest, I'd be much happier to see each one of those floors have a 1-bedroom apartment set aside for our first responders and our nurses and all that and sold to them. I think that would be a far better use of the building than putting a boarding house in. And that's me as quickly as I could say it.
Well, it was very kind of you, Mr. Dodds. Thank you. And Mr. Dodds, just 2 points, if I may, not seeking to respond to your particular concerns, but maybe more generally. There's nothing to say that this won't be occupied by nurses and those other support people that perhaps need accommodation in the area. And secondly, boarding houses have changed quite dramatically in more recent times. And in my day, more so than yours, in early planning terms, boarding houses were a terrible place. You know, they had all sorts of desperates and undesirables, where currently the flavour of the use is far more upmarket. It's far more environmentally friendly and indeed friendly to other persons. And I think the councils across the board go to a great deal of trouble, for want of a better word, to ensure that they're managed in a particular way. Now, that's a general comment rather than a specific reply to your concerns, and I thank you for your comments, and you as well. I'm sure we'll be interested to hear from the applicant directly.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Mr. Dotz.
Thank you.
Can I then see if Mr. Lucas is with us? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
actually,
Before I go to Mr. Lucas, did anyone have any questions of Mr. Dodds from the panel?
Can I just ask one? Just a bit of an.
Yes,
Is that okay? Sorry, Peter. Can I just ask you operationally, when you access your building, I understand so from to get to your car park, do you go down the ramp and you turn left, obviously, to access the public parking area on B1?
If I go, I drive in and I keep
Yep.
turning left going down. Sadly, I'm on B6, so I'm right down the bottom, so I just keep going around in a circle.
So it's just a circular driveway going down at each level. It's not like a driveway going down on the edge,
No,
accessing.
the second tower, and this is building C.
Yes.
The tower that has the Chapel Street address has a ramp going down between the levels. The people in 19 Bay Street go around in circles. So we would drive into B1, go around the circle to B2. B2 is what gives access to the Chapel Street towers, their car park, but we would keep going down in circles.
Okay.
Look, I think the interesting thing here about the parking, and I understand people, there's not enough off-street parking at the moment. There just isn't. You're like, no matter what anybody says, like, you know, and walking around and having a look at an evening, I feel sorry for a lot of people to park out in the street because, you know, they run out of car parking spots around here about 10 o'clock at night and people park in the no standing zones. You know, they want to be near home. You know, it's not policed here. And please, I'm not suggesting, well, I'd make myself very unpopular if I was suggesting it, but it's an interesting issue that is only going to get worse. You know, the building B starts being occupied in October here. That's nearly 90 apartments, so that's 90 people, they themselves will have parking, but then we've got their visitors. If the retail spaces become, one of them has a grease trap, so it's obviously going to be a restaurant or a cafe, its patrons are obviously going to park in our building. So suddenly we've got more vehicles and a traffic problem that doesn't exist at the moment that you can't really accurately quantify because we don't know what sort of business is going to be there. And in the building, the back's 187 apartments. There's just, you know, this whole area is, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be full of life, but it's also going to be like every other part of Sydney. You'll drive around in circles trying to find somewhere to park.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Dodds? Thank you again for your submission.
Thank you.
Mr. Lucas.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Chairman,
would you like to address the committee, please? We'll have a.
Yes.
I can assure you, we'll have a few questions for you as well.
Mr. Chairman, panel members, and council staff, and whoever's listening, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was really going to just say I'm here to answer any questions, but clearly I've got to address a few concerns that have come up. I haven't got my camera on. I'm actually away with the kids camping, so sorry about that. So I'm just on the phone with very little reception, but I'll do my best. In terms of, I might just address the first objector's concerns in relation to the people sort of, you know, who accommodate boarding houses and stuff like that. Boarding houses have come a long way, and these days they're actually set up more like a longer term hotel I think amenity, for amenity in the room and for having appliances and so forth, they're obviously limited, but by having your own washing machine, dryer, cooktop, fridge and so forth, it's a better living space. In terms of who lives in there, a lot of people that the first objector referred to, can't afford a lot of these boarding houses. Some of these boarding houses are fetching between $400 and $450 a week. They're better off getting together and actually renting a 2-bedroom apartment or 3-bedroom apartment. So I'm not actually concerned about that. And I don't think you should be concerned either. Obviously, we can't guarantee that. But from experience, the people, a boarding house of this calibre, and you guys have all seen the building, we worked very hard with council, the design review panel, and the design review panel did actually praise it quite a lot in terms of the design outcome. We were actually the architects for that whole, the rest of the buildings there on Chapel and sort of surrounding this building. So we were the one that won the competition, and we're documenting those buildings, the rest of those buildings as we speak, and they're being constructed. So we know the area quite well. So in terms of that, that's all I can say in relation to objector number 1. In relation to objector number 2, I know the building that they live in quite well, and I can't obviously, control the parking and what people do there and so forth. But in terms of, the car parking and what we've provided for our building, council are happy with. We've had traffic reports. We've done all of that, and that all actually sort of works, and council are happy with it. We're happy with it. Unfortunately, there is a problem in terms of car parking all over Sydney, but so the councils these days are encouraging less parking than more. And in some areas, we're doing a project at the moment in Wollongong Council. We've got 200 square metre apartments, one apartment on every single level, and you've only allowed 1 car space per apartment. And we're saying, where are you going to park the rest? And they say, well, if you want more, it's going to be floor space. So unfortunately, we've got restrictions that we're working with, but we haven't got sort of, much choice there. But we do believe we've resolved it quite well. It is quite a constrained site. But in terms of the outcome, working with kids, I think it actually works very, very well. What else did the second objector raise? I'm just trying to think. There was car parking. In terms of smoking in that, that I can't control. We have got a communal open space area, so whether they decide to smoke in that area or go downstairs, that I actually cannot control. In terms of the calibre of the people that are going to be there, once again, it probably will be nurses. It probably will be sort of, it's not going to be people that get out of prison. But I can't control that either. So I'm not sure sort of how to respond to that. And really sort of anything else that the panel wants to ask, I'm happy to actually address. But we've worked very hard with council and the design review panel. And it was probably one of the best experiences we've had with the design review panel. And we had some pretty tough cookies on it, but we actually sort of got through it. And in the end, I think we've come up with a great solution that's the bookend of building C, which the second objector was referring to, which is the building that he lives in, I believe. So,
who was chairing the design panel, Mr. Lucas?
Gabriel Morris.
Right, thank you. What about cooking?
There will be cooking facilities in every. So the boarding rooms that we're proposing, they're larger than the minimum, or most of them are larger than what the minimum is. So we haven't just gone in with numbers. We've actually got sort of rooms that are going to work, that are more livable. But every single room, I believe, will have a cooktop, like just a 2-burner cooktop, a combined washing machine and dryer, and a small fridge.
Okay. And one last question from me, Mr. Lucas.
Yeah.
You're the architect as well as the applicant?
Correct, that's right, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I know the panel had some questions about the plan of management.
Yes.
I'm wondering, Mr. Montgomery, would you like to explain your concerns?
Yeah, sure. A couple of questions in relation to management and operation, I guess, Theo. I note that in the foyer, if a stranger or a person like myself, for example, was looking for a room to rent a room. What would I do when I went into that foyer? Because there's no sort of office shown there, and all there is a lift. So how does that side of things work? If you can just explain that, and also visitors, when visitors come into that foyer.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I have not got the plans with me, and I'm actually out in condo, so I'm 6 hours away from Sydney. But I'll do my best from memory to remember exactly what's there. I thought at one stage we did actually have a reception desk there, but there will be a manager on site full time. So when people actually check in and out, the manager will be there, sort of, allowing people in and making sure sort of, everything's in the right order when they're actually leaving. In terms of visitors and so forth, obviously, the rooms will be numbered. Someone comes in, they're let into the building. It's like an apartment block. So someone comes in, they're let in, they can only access the floor that room is on and nothing else. Now, I suspect, like sitting down with a client and going through, sort of the finer grain of that, is he going to have someone in reception full time? Is the manager going to be in their room and then basically just coming down and letting people in? I suppose we've got the option in doing that, but there will be a manager living on site full time because we have to have a manager on site.
Yep.
So there will be someone there 24/7 monitoring all of that.
So there'll be some sort of call button, I assume.
Correct. That's right.
Right. Okay. Just going on from that, and this is probably difficult for you without having the documents in front of you, but in your plan of management and the monitoring and complaints procedure, it seems to me that the boarding house managing agent has all the responsibility for complaints management and the day-to-day operation of the boarding house. And then when I look a little bit further, the operational plan simply refers to inverted commas management, close inverted commas, which I'm not sure what or who management is. It seems to me that, and maybe the simple fix to this issue is if the council was to put a condition requiring that to be rewritten so it's clear what the on-site manager does. Would that be acceptable to you as the applicant?
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, that's fine. But I can assure you the on-site manager will be managing the day-to-day, all the complaints and pretty much the whole running of when we mean running, the on-site running of the actual boarding house itself. So there'll be a team in the background that obviously do all the financial stuff and all that sort of stuff. So the on-site manager just really manages the day-to-day. But we're happy to accept.
We're just losing you a bit there.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
If you're walking around, try and stand still.
No, I'm actually not. But hang on, I'll actually just go out. And
that's good. Don't move. Don't move.
Hang on. I'm outside.
Yeah, look,
3 degrees. Is that okay?
Yeah, don't move.
Okay.
Look, I'm not going to go in the circumstances. It'd be silly for me to talk detail here, but clearly, if the council was to put a condition on requiring a revised management plan to include that sort of thing, the responsibilities of the on-site manager, that would be acceptable to you?
Of course, not a problem at all. Not a problem.
Thank you. That's the only question I had. Thanks for that.
Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Lucas? Anna.
Thank you, Gary. In the same token that Robert has mentioned about revising the plan of management, and I'm not sure whether this is within the scope of the plan of management or another part of the application. The establishment of the Community Consultative Committee is a good initiative. However, it's only concerned with complaints on the operation of the boarding house. I was hoping to get an extension of that function so that the consultative committee operates during construction as well, and that would allow property owners adjacent to this development to raise any issues that concern them, maybe structural or otherwise, during the construction. Is that something, if we propose that, doable a doable.
I'm not sure legally if you can actually do that, because what actually happens is when someone actually does a development, they hand over the site and the build to the builder. So even the owner of the property legally needs the builder's permission to walk onto the property. So I'm not sure legally if we can do that. By all means, in terms of, we're happy to work with people. So the developer that did the building next door, and also this is doing all the surrounding buildings there in that Chapel Street precinct. We actually, our office is in one of their buildings, and their office is basically 15 metres away, and we work with them. We do a lot of work for them, and we work with them pretty closely. But in terms of, how do you do that? I'm not sure legally. Maybe Gary may be able to assist. I know of Gary and heard a lot about him, and seen him around the traps. But maybe you can assist. But I'm not sure legally if a condition can be put on like that, because is that just a waste of time? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy to do it, but legally, can it be actually enforced? Because really, obviously, there's a private certifier involved now with the building commissioner and all that. So I don't think this falls under it. But in terms of all that, everyone's actually stepped up their documentation and the whole sort of processing and what works and how it sort of operates and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not sure if a condition like that can be placed. But maybe the chairman can actually help me there. But we're happy to accept it. But I'm not sure if it can be enforceable.
Well, it's probably not my place to advise on the logistics of it, but one of the options that could be looked at was being part of the construction management plan. And then when you pass over the consent to the builder and the construction management plan forms part of that, and I understand that the construction management plan is normally a preliminary one, that could form part of that exercise.
That can happen.
That obligation goes across. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, I've just got a few. It's Larissa. Can I just ask you, so in relation, I just wanted to know whether you've got any information in regards to the structural stability of the wall at present and how that wall along that side, the common boundary, was constructed, because often it is constructed to allow for an opening, and there are those kind of panels that provide for that. So I just didn't know. I just wanted to ask you whether you've done any investigation. Was it built with that in mind, or did the easement come after the construction?
We actually did. We documented that building, so we know that building very well. So yes, that wall has been constructed, was documented, constructed, engineered to allow for access to the property next door. That was actually that was a condition, and I believe it formed part of the 88B instrument for that site. So yes, it has been allowed for.
Okay, because there's obviously going to be conditions to ensure the stability and all that. That's fine. But I just wanted to know whether, because often that is happening. If you've got the permission to build. And to have an easement for access for future. Yeah, so that's one. The other issue was, I'm no BCA consultant, but fire stairs, there's only one set. With the height of the building, I thought you might need two, but do you deal with this on alternate solutions? Or because I've dealt with a very tight site that's come back later and said it needs another set of fire stairs because it's exceeding, 20 metres, 25 metres.
If it was residential, it would. But because it's actually not residential, it's a different class. No, it's not. No.
So that's where it's a different class of building. Okay, that's sorted that out, because I was just thinking, oh my gosh, if you have to come back and put another set of stairs in, there's going to be an issue. But I thought you might have looked to resolve that earlier. No, okay, that's fine. And there's one small operational issue, just really minor, and I don't really want to press it so much. I just wanted to get your view. Is when I looked at your design at the rooftop, you've got the rooftop open space. You've obviously got the separate management kind of unit or kind of apartment or what have you room there, but also you've got the communal area which has the living room and amenities of small kitchen, what have you. But like that level has no bathroom or no even just a small WC just to cater for, a toilet and a basin. And I just thought that probably should be something that maybe could be integrated into that living space to, even on the side, I think it's kind of juts out, and I think you've got a lounge room. I mean, I don't know, what's your opinion on it? I don't want to press it if you've designed this building that doesn't.
We're happy to actually accept a condition to incorporate a bathroom, like a toilet, just a WC. On that level, that's not a problem. A community one, that services the community room. I just thought you go all the way up there and then you're going to need the toilet, and it's like you've got to go all the way back down to someone's. No, that makes sense.
I just thought that maybe we could integrate that, but through the design, I just wanted to see if that's something that can function.
Not a problem.
Great.
That's about it for me. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Larissa. Any other questions of Mr. Lucas? Well, thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you.
And we'll make a decision on this matter later this evening. It'll be available hopefully tomorrow, but if not, the day after that.
Fantastic.
And in the meantime, you might have a chat with the owner and work through some of that fine detail you were talking about for planner management.
That's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That's the end of that item. As I said, we'll determine that shortly. And in the meantime, can I move on to the next item, which is 6.2, being 2 Princess Highway, Wooleye Creek. And we have a number of council officers here that will be able to answer any questions that the panel may have. But I'm not sure that the panel's got any questions.
Yeah.
Panel?
I've probably just got one question for council.
Thank you.
They're satisfied with this option, this design that's before them, and obviously the conditions, are they satisfactory? If, are they content with those conditions and with the option that's in front of us?
Who wants to answer that? Anyone from council?
They might not be
Hi.
on.
Hi. I'm Louise Farrell. I'm the manager of City Projects. I'm happy to respond to that. So my team has reviewed the DA conditions. We're comfortable, and I mean, I think even in your own the report and comments that have been made from our internal planners, it was seen as an extension to the existing cafe. So we are happy from, I guess, we're the applicant's point of view. And we've worked closely with the development services team, so comfortable with that.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just quickly ask you, just an operational thing, is the leasee of the cafe building it, or is it council building the
Council
facility?
will be building it. At this stage, we don't have a leasee. I believe a tender will be presented tomorrow evening to a council committee, and then seek a recommendation at our 27th of July council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you. No other questions? Well, then might I declare the public section of this meeting closed, and can I thank those in attendance and ask you to sign off, and we'll do our deliberations on the decisions of those 2 matters that we have before us. Thank you all for your presentations and for your very respectful behaviour.
Thank you.
And can I ask the panel to stay on? Don't you sign out. We've just got a little bit more work to do. All right. Okay, everyone off?
Through you, Mr.